Welcome to Smell of Page. The Treasure Box, written by Sarojini Sinha. Chapter 9. The boys set out for the camp. On the way, they saw a big bazaar. Shopkeepers who had fled Delhi were selling milk, fruits, vegetables, meat, and other goods the British needed. In fact, they were better supplied than the shippoys of Delhi. Govind thought angrily. "Arey Govind, what are you doing here?" A familiar voice called out. Govind was startled to see Kuber Chand, whose house was in their lane and who had quit Delhi at the beginning of hostilities. They had often wondered where he had gone to. Now Govind knew. "I could ask you the same question," he said. "What are you doing here?" "You can see what I'm doing," Kuber Chand said, laughing. He leaned against a bolster with a satisfied look. Two British soldiers with pipes clenched between their teeth came to the shop. "Tambaku hai, kitna dam?" one of them drawled hotly. Kuber Chand scrapped and bowed, muttering, "Ji huzur." He hurriedly took some tobacco from a wooden box, wrapped it in a piece of paper, and handed the package with a great show of respect. The soldiers threw a couple of coins in front of him and sauntered off. Kuber Chand gathered the coins greedily and put them in a cash box and carefully locked it. Almost purring with happiness, he looked up at Govind. "Did you see that, my dear fellow? In Delhi, I wouldn't have got 8 annas for it." The boy frowned in disgust. "I'm on to a good thing, Govind," Kuber Chand went on, "but I need someone to help me." "What about your sons?" Govind asked. "My sons? I don't want them to risk their lives here. There is death everywhere. There is fighting. There is cholera. In fact, some more people die of cholera than of fighting. So, if I can get someone to work for me, I would pay him well." "What are you doing here these days, Govind?" "Nothing much." "Where is your father?" "I don't know, but he was in Aligarh when the war began." "You mean the Shippoy mutiny?" "That's what the British call it, but it is the War of Independence," Govind said vehemently. Kuber Chand chose to ignore what he said. "I suppose," he prattled on, "your father continues to be as impractical as ever. He always had his head in the clouds. He won't admit it, but the Angries are going to win. Then what'll happen to all of you?" "They won't. I tell you they won't." Govind was too furious to keep his voice down. "Shh, shh, my dear fellow, be at rest. Cut your losses while the going's good. I'll employ you and your servant as well. Won't it be funny for master and servant to be working together for me?" Kuber Chand chuckled happily at the thought. Govind was fuming. He looked upon Bola more as a friend than a servant. "Fools like you are responsible for the mess we are in," he shouted. "Black sheep like you have made it possible for the foreigners to lord it over us." Some British officers passed by. Kuber Chand's warning look made Govind realize that he had spoken unwisely. "We must leave, Bola," he said, and clutching him by the shoulder, left hurriedly. Asking for directions, Govind and Bola made their way to the mess tent of the 9th Lancers. In places, they were challenged by British sentries. Though they spoke of Hindustani after a fashion, Govind found it difficult to understand them because of their strange accents. He guessed, however, that they wanted to know who they were and what they were doing. His heart pounding within him, he stammered, "We are on the village of Shapu in Hapu. We are the nephews of Anandram. He is a bearer in your mess. We thought we too could get jobs here. We want to work for the Angries Sahibs. We are told they are kind and generous masters." The words stuck in Govind's throat, but he managed to get them out. "Acha, bahut acha. Chalo, jaldi jaldi." The soldiers pushed them on with a slap on their backs. The boys managed to reach the ninth Lancers' mess tent. They peeped in and were speechless. The ground was covered with lush carpets, on which stood long tables, draped with white tablecloths. The tables were set for dinner, complete with silver cutlery and salt and pepper cellars. Silver candelabras with lighted candles stood at the center of each table. Govind whispered, "These fellows living in better style in their tents than the emperor does in his palace." The boy asked a water carrier who was going in to tell Anandram that his nephews from Shapur had come to see him. While they were waiting, a heavy hand fell on Govind's shoulder, and a rough voice asked curtly, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Though frightened, Govind told him that he had told other sentries. But the man was not satisfied. "Let's ask Anandram if he recognized these fellows." He sent for Anandram, and a tall, dignified, middle-aged man in bearer's uniform came out. The water carrier had already told him that his nephews from Hampu had come. So though he did not recognize either Govind or Bola, he said, "Yes, Sahib, they are my nephews from village." As a spy, Anandram was used to all sorts of people coming to him with messages. The sentry left and Govind hastily introduced Bola and himself. "We are friends of Mirza Yunus Khan," he whispered. "I have been waiting for his messenger and wondering why he hadn't come earlier. He died of cholera." Before Govind could ask where Abdul was, a gong sounded, startling both of them. Anandram smiled. "It's all right," he said. "The gong summons the sahibs to dinner. Wait under the tree there. I shall come to you after dinner is over." Before leaving, he glanced at the two sharply. "Both of you look rather young to have come here on a dangerous mission." He did not wait for an answer. Govind and Bola waited while the officers ate a 6-course dinner. After the meal, Anandram came out and said, "Come to the kitchen tent. We will talk there." The cooks had already left the tent and only the servants were there washing up and cleaning. But one of them was to sleep in the tent at night. But Anandram told him, "My nephews have come and I have to discuss my family matters with them. It's too late to go home and I would like to talk to them here. Do you mind sleeping elsewhere while I and my nephews sit here and talk?" The young chap grinned and said, "I would be happy to call it a day if you agree to spend the night here. But please keep an eye on things. If anything is lost, the head cook will skin me alive." "Don't worry," Anandram assured him. "He isn't so bad. His bark is worse than his bite. But we shall keep an eye." The servant washed the dusters and hung them to dry on a rope which ran across one side of the tent. Then he put on his kurta and left.